Man, this is hard work, Sam. Watching you work just wears me out.
2 are gone here, and I just took the wrapper off, and the screw fell out, and this is why.
You're screwed.
Yeah.
Welcome to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. This week, Sam and Kevin Ford complete the accessory wiring harness in the Project Jeep TJ rock crawler. Sam, along with Doug Harris, work on converting the Hemsaw Alpha GTO suspension to coilover springs. Special guest Nelson Gill and his daughter Nora help Sam install the ACC Performance Boss Hog torque converter on the LS3 engine. Then we head back to NHOU to learn more about their revolutionary products. This episode, Sam and Kevin Ford complete the accessory wiring harness from Painless Performance in the Project Jeep TJ rock crawler.
All right, so all we're gonna do now is, like I said, this is a mocking stage of any build. We build the car twice, put everything together, run it, make sure you got enough wire, terminate the ends when you need to. We don't have a lot of components, and all we really have is headlights. We don't have a lot inside either, but we're gonna take our wiring, run it where we need to, lume it if we have to, take it all out, and then, tear apart the Jeep, put it all back together, terminate things, connect everything when we go to ready the next time to put it together.
Yep, we'll just see where we're at and see how it fits. We're not going to terminate anything just yet.
Absolutely, let's do it. It takes the guesswork out of anybody out there who may not know how to wire up a relay or may not know how important grounds are. Your voltage is only as good as your ground. Now in the kit, they provide you a grommet, okay? You have to make a hole in their firewall with a hole saw for the grommet. Now you have to remember that inside the grommet is when the actual diameter is. It's inside, not the outside diameter. Take your hole saw and make sure that you're drilling the hole that's gonna complement the inside diameter, not the outside diameter, because then your grommet will fall out and you have to patch that hole, okay? Very important.
See that, and I'll mark the hole for you.
And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the battery back in place so that we know exactly where to run the hole for the wires to go through the grommet, clearing the battery and clearing our trail rock relay panel. All right, we got the easy part done with our wire harness, and believe it or not, drilling the hole and setting that up was the easy part.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we've got all kinds of wires to hook up later.
And it's not really difficult, it's just time consuming.
Yeah.
You guys wanna make sure to run your wires correctly, keeping them out of harm's way, looming it when you're done, bolting it down with straps to the floor so it stays stationary.
Proper tools for terminating the wires.
Exactly. Use heat shrink, and don't forget to do proper grounds. If you have painted surface, scrape off the paint first, have fresh metal on both the contact and the surface.
Yeah, and make sure you're clear of everything. I mean, we check this, 3-4 times, make sure everything clears and we know it's gonna fit.
Very important. That way you got longevity out of your build. There's nothing worse than being stuck on the side of the road. I'm gonna go inside and figure out a place to put this switch panel, and we'll continue on.
All right.
The wiring. It's difficult, can be fun, but never really is, right?
I mean, look at this.
This
is intimidating.
Really
intimidating. What are we hooking up?
But the good thing is that these wires completely are detailed and printed all the way down to the end every 12 or 16 inches.
Yeah.
So all you really need is glasses to be able to read them, and you should be able to do the job no problem.
Yeah, and Painless has come out with their off-road side. So like we were just talking about before, this is all waterproof. It's gonna mount under the hood. We don't have to hide it inside, which probably wouldn't do us any good anyway with it being open.
Absolutely.
And we got grommets and everything we need.
The trail rock here with the incorporated relay box.
This is gonna make things so simple.
All the fuses.
Yeah.
The switch panel. All we have to do to this system is provide a ground wire. Any component you go to, you have to ground the component at the location where it's at. Right. Everything else is going to be power, but they've got it to where we're going to go into the switch. The outputs come out of the box to our components. We have a total of 8 relays, so we've got 8 components we could power up.
Right, and this thing being kind of condensed, we've got 8 switches in one little harness. They even gave us the stuff to shield it and everything. We can bring it over to it, and then we can hook up our lights, air compressor, anything else.
But if the winch wasn't remote control, and if you had a wired remote, they've got a switch where you can go inside and control your winch from inside.
It's got nice labels on it and everything.
But you still got to come out and disengage the clutch or engage the clutch.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. Sam and Doug upgrade the handling of the Alpha 1 GTO by replacing the factory original front struts with a new set of coilover springs. As usual, they'll show us the process from beginning to end, providing tips along the way. Once the upgrade is completed, the GTO will handle twists and turns like a thoroughbred sports car.
All right, so anytime you guys are building a highly modified vehicle like this 250 GTO, you're going to be doing the suspension, the brakes like Doug and I are doing, and in our case, we're changing the whole weight balance of the vehicle. So we need something like this full coilover setup. Tell them why, Doug.
Sam, you know, all those years road racing, what you have to do is get the balance of the car right. So since we're changing the motor out, actually the motor we're going to put in is a little bit lighter than the factory.
Really?
Yeah, 280 motor. So it's actually going to be a lighter engine. So we want to check our spring rates, we want to make sure our ride heights, we want to make sure everything's fully adjustable, and also the dampening. And if you take a look at those, they also have adjustable dampening in it. So we'll be able to get this dialed in right.
Absolutely. Not only that, but we all got an alignment adjustment as well. Something that this car really didn't come with. You had to add those camber bolts to the lower control arms to get yourself some adjustability.
Yeah, because what we do is we check the tire temperatures, all right? So you go, you make a couple hot laps, we come back in, we'll check the temperature all the way across the tread. We want to make sure that temperature's uniform.
So if I see a little bit of tread wear on the negative camber, I know I've got some negative camber, I could take it out. But in this case, like you said, here we got ride height adjustability, we got spring rate adjustability, and like you said, we can change out these spring rates because we've got more power, and you don't know what this thing's going to feel like when you go in and out of corners.
Yep, that's correct. This allows us to dial everything in.
We're going to go ahead and install them.
Now Doug and I have it a bit easier when we're working on the front half of the GTO because as you can see, the engine is currently removed. First, we're going to loosen and remove the hardware that holds the strut to the strut tower. Now, if we got the brake lines that are attached to the strut, we want to make sure to remove them as well. In order to remove the front spindle from the strut assembly, there's oil in the cartridge and it's got to be drained completely. So we're going to drill a hole in the top and bottom of the cartridge, allowing for the oil to drain out. Make sure to wear safety glasses and follow the manufacturer's instructions when doing this step. The spindle can then be inserted into the new coilover spring at this time. Adjust the ride height and spring rate to the desired settings. Further adjustments can be made when the coilover has been installed back into the vehicle.
All right, Doug, our nuts on top are tight. Let's go ahead and close the hood.
You know, Sam, that was an awful lot of work, but it's going to really be worth it.
Absolutely. And you know, anytime you have a cartridge type suspension like what you saw us working with just now, those suspensions, it's a McPherson strut. It is popular all the way up until the mid-2000s on European cars. So all these old imports, if you want to change out the shock or even the spring, you have to go in and cut the factory cartridge out of the body of the shock.
Yeah, you know, and that's an awful lot of work when you cut it out. You always got to remember, drain the oil first. You want to put a couple of holes, one in the top, one in the bottom, allow that oil to drain out of that strut. Then you want to go ahead and use a little abrasive cutter. Take your time, work your way all the way around it. This way it'll separate real easy, and then you can start to put it into the coilovers.
And don't try to take a Sawzall and go right through the middle of the shock because there's a hardened shaft in the middle.
Yeah, there's a hardened shaft, and what they do, it's an internal shock inside of it. So as you get ready to cut through it, you're going to get, once you get to that center point, there's a hardened shaft in there, and you're going to wind up creating all kinds of trouble.
Absolutely. So with these new coilovers, we got full adjustability. We're able to get around the corners, and it's going to make a huge improvement when going to the road course.
You know, everything here is so adjustable. We'll get the car handling exactly the way we want it.
Absolutely. And remember, guys, anytime you're cutting up a cartridge like what you just saw us do, read the instructions, cut the proper amount, because if you make it too short, you're going to destroy the integrity of that shock. Rodents are a huge problem. At my shop for the last 20 years, I can't tell you the damage that I've seen these guys create in vehicles. NHOU has come up with mouse out.
So what we do is we know that mice do not like to touch the oil. We also know they have very sensitive smells. So what we do is we put an essential oil in there. It's a menthol smell known to be a deterrent. We also put something in there that fools them into thinking that there is a cat in the area, so it's a predatory. One of the problems today is that they're using a soy to coat wires, which used to be a petroleum base, in an effort to go green. The problem is that is something that the mice are attracted to. This product has been very effective in being a deterrent. And as a byproduct of deterring the rodents, you're going to protect those electrical connections, and if any metal surface that you put it on, an RV, a boat trailer, farm equipment, you're going to have a rust protectant there as well.
Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. Nelson Gill and his daughter Nora from ACC Performance came all the way from Muscle Shoals, Alabama to help Sam install their Boss Hog torque converter on the LS3 engine. Nelson and his daughter give us a lesson on how torque converters work and assist in the transfer of power from the engine to the transmission. ACC Performance has been in business for over 50 years. Their passion and commitment to quality products is unmatched.
Nelson, why don't you tell everybody the differences between these two torque converters?
Sam, these are both 4L80. So what I want you to pay attention to is how this right here actually is squeezed more into the body right here, where this one here on the right, or your left right there, would be more of an anti-ballooning plate. This impeller hub is what actually engages into the front pump gear, and as you see, this one's a 2.5 inch length and this one's only a 2 inch length. Well, there's no designators. General Motors didn't put that up. So the only way you're going to find out is to take the torque converter off to see what you actually have. Now this one here has a dual stage stator. It actually has two stators on top of each other. It's great for towing, but the better torque multiplication comes out of this other torque converter. So you got to know what you have before you ever place an order with a 4L80 style transmission. This right here is going to be the best multiplication, torque multiplication you're going to get. So we actually get a lot of these, but again, there's a lot of these style torque converters, the new style, that are actually out there as well. So that's very important to know what you got before you ever order anything.
Absolutely, that is important. Now, what's on the inside of this? This one's cut away, correct?
Yes, sir. So whenever you open this up, one thing that you'll notice is the massive weight of a 4L80 torque converter. This thing is very heavy gauge steel. And this right here acts almost as an anti-ballooning plate to take that extra power from the heavy towing loads and the extreme power output. Now this right here is the stator. Now the stator functions as a back pressure unit, so you can actually come up to a stop sign and stop. This has a clutch inside there called a sprag, so it can actually turn freely. But when you go the other way, it just locks down on a sprag type clutch on the internals. Once it does that, it applies back pressure to the turbine and then begins to drive the car. So now this is a lockup style torque converter. So you know you're going to have a piston in behind here that'll go 1-to-1 with the front cover or the bottom of the torque converter, giving you even better gas mileage and reliability, keeping the transmission that much cooler. That's what matters in these torque converters, is how we actually go apart, the types of bearings we use, and they're very, very tough.
Now tell us about the size difference between this one and this one. This handles a whole bunch more horsepower, but the size difference is a lot different.
Yeah, that's an extreme thing, because stall becomes a physics equation whenever you're matching up horsepower, gear ratios, the weight of the car, the intake system, forced induction, nitrous type cars. Everything comes into play. How well the heads breathe. It's fluid pressure versus resistance. If they're not asking you a ton of questions and just asking a cam and gear ratio, you can't do that.
No. You have to have the weight of the car, correct?
You got to have the weight of the car.
The RPM band.
Yes, you got to match. The intake's got to match the heads have got to match the exhaust system. If you're off in one area, it'll definitely throw the stall off, depending on how many pounds of boost as to how much stall you want.
And if the stall is off, it's going to produce heat inside the transmission from the torque converter and the fluid.
And a loss of actual torque multiplication, which means you're going to have a severe loss of power. You're looking at a torque converter here that weighs, 65 pounds dry plus, Or you could go into a torque converter like mine that's 30 pounds.
That's a lot less rotating mass. It's going to make a lot more power in the transmission, taking it off the back of the
The engine
crankshaft.
doesn't have to work nearly as hard to just turn that torque converter over.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. Now let's see what's going on today at NHOU. Sam meets up with Joe DuPont to talk about some of their new revolutionary products. NHOU protective coatings are the fastest, least expensive way to add safety and value to your vehicle, sealing out corrosives and eliminating rust.
We've all heard about ceramic coating. A lot of us are scared about it because of all the hype out there. Joe has come up with a very simple DIY kit at NHOU that you guys can do ceramic coating painlessly and without fear at home.
Yeah, you know, depending on the surface, whether it needs any prep or not, and paint correction is really just compounding the vehicle out. If you've got a fairly new vehicle, you likely don't have any surface scratches, and then so if you do, this is going to magnify them, so you want to be careful. Provided that your surface is clean and you're okay, this is something that you can put on almost as easy as wax. In fact, it's even in some ways easier because wax, you have to be careful not to touch plastic and chrome and things like that. You get buildup in the cracks. You're not going to see that with this. You can go over virtually any substrate with this. 1 or 2 coats is going to give you anywhere from 6 to 8 years of protection. It's going to make your surface hydrophobic, which means it's going to be very easy to clean. It's going to magnify whatever color you have. It's going to look shinier than wax, and it has a chemical bond versus sitting on the surface like wax waiting to be washed off.
Yep, and even myself, I was scared about all the hype I've heard about ceramic coating and paint correction and the high cost that comes along with it. But Joe has made it easy, has made it cost effective, and you guys can be prideful at home to make your car look as good as the guy next to you.
Unless, of course, you get therapy out of wiping wax on every week. We actually have the largest selection of rust-proofing equipment in the country.
This is exactly what it's going to take to make sure that you guys apply the oil properly so you can get a good coating and you get longevity out of it. These 2 guns come with the regulator, making sure that you guys apply the correct air to it. This one you're going to have to rely on your own regulator, but it's very important to make sure that you guys have the correct air going through these guns so you get the correct application on your undercoating. Let's face it, everybody, rust is a huge problem in this country, whether you live up north in the snow or whether you live down south in the salty air. NHOU has come up with a undercoating oil that will basically add safety and value to your vehicle. They also have this HD version. Tell us about the HD version.
So the HD version is our oil on steroids. It's a much thicker version. We had to actually create a special piece of equipment just to be able to atomize and spray this. Our goal with this was to take care of commercial vehicles that are out there, you know, during every storm, high mileage vehicles. They were not getting a full year. They were coming back and we were touching them up and we did okay with that, but they said, hey, gee, if you only had something that we could extend this a year, maybe even go 2 years if it's a regular use vehicle. So what we did was we had a product we used in our wheel wells. We called it Wheel Well Guard, and we worked with our chemist and said, hey, can we kind of switch the formula around a little bit and use this over the vehicle, because we want to have water displacement and we want to have some basic qualities before we spray a frame, especially if it has rust. This is the answer to that problem.
And you guys also have this in clear, just like your oil as well.
Clear and black.
That is cool. And let me tell you guys, this is a piece of rust right here off of a car that they're working on currently. That is the factory paint on the outside. And this is a complete layered piece of metal that just fell off the car. This is the kind of thing you're going to be protecting. Now, when you've got a car like this and you want to go trade it in or sell it, you're not going to get a lot of money for it. But if you've got an NHOU undercoating on your vehicle, you're going to get a lot of value out of that vehicle when you go to trade it in or sell it.
Their products and services will have your vehicle protected from top to bottom. In addition, NHOU offers all the equipment to apply their amazing products, making them a one-stop shop for protective coating.